Again at the Quays in the heart of Newry for we've been covering the business breakfast of FPM Fergal McCormick's people, and I'm joined by Katrin Pietzonka.
Morning, Rowan.
Good to see you, and Tommy Sands.
Hi, Rowan.
Now this is an unusual enough amalgam. It's a joining, a fusion of words and music, because Katrin, you have written the book and the healing has begun, and it's a musical journey towards peace in Northern Ireland. And Tommy features because of the wonderful peace songs that he has brought to our table throughout the worst of the Troubles. And in many, many ways, Tommy, music has seen us through the worst times.
I think so. Sometimes music can take up where words fail, because it appeals to a different part of the brain and the heart than words. I think words on their own can reach to the ends of the earth, but words on the wings of a song can soar higher and seep deeper and reach further inside to express hurt or pain or even hope.
Well, hope indeed. And Katrin, would you say there's hope contained in the pages of this wonderful book?
Absolutely. That was the whole purpose of writing the book, to make sure that everyone finds out that yes, there is hope, and the songs have certainly changed since the Troubles started, and that was the reason I wrote the book. A lot of the songs starting in the 1950s and then 60s, they gradually changed and expressed more hope, and that was one of the reasons why I wrote the book. And I would like to thank you for inviting me, and thank you, Tom, for allowing me to come to Newry to talk about my book.
Why does a woman of Germany take an interest in the travails of Northern Ireland?
And that's exactly the point. You might think I'm an outsider. What right have I, my age?
That wasn't the nature of my inquiry.
I know.
The nature of my inquiry was, what moved your heart as it did to make you interested in us?
Exactly. I was brought up in East Germany. I was born in East Germany, and shortly after the wall came down, the Sands family played in my hometown. So I invited them to come to school the next day to talk about the Troubles. In 1993, I believe it was. The ceasefire hadn't yet happened, and what developed out of it was a fantastic friendship between Tom, Colin, Ben and myself. They invited me over, and this is how I first came to Ireland. I studied then in Leipzig University. I specialized in Irish subjects. I studied music and English for becoming a school teacher, secondary school teacher.
And was it your school that you invited Tommy to come to?
I had a wonderful, most wonderful English teacher at the time. He has since passed away, and he was so motivated. We invited Tom, Ben and Colin over to school, and it was a fantastic event. And that's how I got intrigued and very interested to find out more about the situation in Northern Ireland. And when I first came to Ireland and Northern Ireland, I just fell in love with the place. And 20 years later, here I am sitting
Katrin,
with Tom, talking about my book.
Your book. This is the stuff that moves hearts. That kind of meeting, that chance coming together, Tommy.
That's true, and now she's Dr. Katrin Pietzonka, because this is the thesis for her doctorate as well. And
wow.
Delving into
it's an academic work, but it's also readable, which is a wee bit strange. You think it's dull, academics are boring people, but you're not.
No, it's not boring at all. There is one chapter about theoretical aspects, of course there is, but then there's also a chapter on rock and pop songs that were written about the Troubles or after the ceasefire even. And for that reason, I think this book will be a fantastic reference book also to be introduced into schools, even on a cross-curricular basis, involving history, English and music. And it would also work, of course, bringing more cultural understanding to what happened in Northern Ireland. And me coming from East Germany,
Indeed,
there's so many, similarities.
Yeah. Can I take you back to your East Germany? You grew up, you were born into the East, you grew up in the East.
That's right.
What was it like?
It was completely different things that I remember, that we, for example, only twice a year we were able to get bananas, let's say.
Twice a year?
So we had to queue up. The announcement was made the day before, and then we had to go to the fruit and vegetable shop and queue up, and every family was only allowed 5 bananas. So once you collected your 5 bananas, you paid for them, your name was crossed off the list. We weren't allowed to travel. That was the biggest thing for me. My grandmother always said, when you grow up, the wall will come down. I was 14 when it finally happened.
So your
My
grandmother had that vision.
She
She
did.
knew that the wall was wrong.
But unfortunately, she never saw the wall coming down. She passed away
She may have
beforehand.
seen it from another place.
That's right.
She may have
did.
influenced it from another place.
She probably did. So I was bursting to get out. I was bursting to go traveling. And that was the biggest thing about it. I went to a lot of concerts after the wall came down. I'd say about 20 Van Morrison concerts, Bob Dylan concerts, Paul McCartney. I was always very interested in songs. And why I wrote the book, and this is very important, I didn't just go off and write the book. I did a lot of research, I interviewed a lot of people, and I have to thank Phil Coulter, Mickey McConnell, Tommy Sense, all these important people that I think wrote the most significant songs that will go down in history and will be remembered.
And one of Tommy's is the Roses song, is
exactly.
it not?
A fantastic song, and like I said again, I would like to say it again, in years to come, it should be a school book, a history book, and you can find out more about Tommy's song, There Were Roses, and I think I should ask Tommy to talk about it.
Well, will you sing Roses for us now, Tommy?
Okay.
Michael is going to just adjust the microphone for you. And maybe tell us of the origin of the song.
Yeah, well, as you know, Rowan, I grew up in the Ryan Road, and a lot of people came to our house at night to sing songs and tell stories. And it came from both sides of what we call the divide. And it came, I think, because of the music. In many cases, my parents both played music. And my father played the fiddle and my mother played the accordion. And my very earliest memory, I think, was watching toes tapping to the same rhythm, regardless of the political persuasion or religious affiliation. And I realized that music was something that could somehow connect up all the secret things inside us, the sacred things inside us, in ways that we didn't know. So then, this song is about that type of thing, how friends can be pulled apart. My song for you this evening, it's not to make you sad, or for adding to the sorrows of this troubled northern land. But lately I've been thinking, and I just won't leave my mind, to tell you of two friends one time who were both good friends of mine. Alan Bell from Benach, he lived just across the fields. Great man for the music and the dancing and the reels. O'Malley came from South Armagh to court young Alice Fair, and we'd often meet on the Ryan Road, and the laughter filled the air. There were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together. Though Alan he was Protestant and Sean was Catholic born, it never made a difference, for the friendship it was strong. And sometimes in the evening, when we heard the sound of drums, we said it won't divide us, we will always be the one. For the ground our fathers ploughed in, the soil it is the same, and the places where we say our prayers have just got different names. We talked about the friends who died, and we hoped there'd be no more. It's little then we realized the tragedy in store. There were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together. It was on a Sunday morning when the awful news came round. Another killing has been done just outside Newry town. He knew that Alan danced up there, we knew he liked the band. But when we heard that he was dead, we just could not understand. We gathered at the graveside on that cold and rainy day, and the minister, he closed his eyes and he prayed for no revenge. And all the ones who knew him from along the Ryan road, we bowed our heads and we said a prayer for the resting of his soul. There were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together. Well, fear had filled the countryside, there was fear in every home, when a car of death came prowling round the lonely Ryan road. A Catholic would be killed tonight to even up the score. Oh Christ, it's young O'Malley that they're taking from the door. Alan was my friend, he cried, he begged them with his fear. But centuries of hatred, of ears that cannot hear. An eye for an eye was all that filled their mind, and another eye for another eye, till everyone is blind. There were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together. So my song for you this evening, it's not to make you sad, nor for adding to the sorrows of this troubled northern land. But lately I've been thinking, and it just won't leave my mind, to tell you of two friends one time who were both good friends of mine. And I don't know where the moral is, or where the song should end, but I wonder just how many wars are fought between good friends. Those that give the orders are not the ones to die. It's Bell and O'Malley and the likes of you and I. There were roses, roses, there were roses, the tears of the people ran together.
Tommy, possessed of all the melancholy of 1,000 deaths in Northern Ireland. And it almost seems to me, Katrin, that this song, it has come from another place. I know you wrote it sitting down at home on the Ryan Road or wherever, but it seems to me that the composer of that song wasn't you. You were the mouthpiece. You were the brain that was used to put these sentiments down. It's a symphony of sentiment about healing and trouble and good sense. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially coming, I think it's the message of the whatever God of love you believe in. And as you sing it there, you're reaching back really through the millennia to some wellhead of gentleness that's going to bubble up and feed us all with good sense.
I think you're right, Rowan. I think song belongs to another world almost, and I think you probably have to get into that world to some degree, or that world has to come to you. And you're right. I mean, I wrote the words down, but the song kind of wrote itself in a way, I think the whole idea of song, it is to get into that sense of otherness that we all have within us, a sense of hope, all these more positive things, because I think we're all filled with the same elements, and it depends what we bring to the surface, or what brings the good things to the surface and what brings the more negative things to the surface. And songs can do that both for the listener and for the songwriter, I think.
And in your book, Katrin, and the name of the book again, And the Healing Has Begun, a musical journey towards peace in Northern Ireland, you capture you pull out of the song, you pull out of the words, that central sentiment, which is, though Alan was a Protestant and Sean was Catholic born, it never made a difference, for the friendship it was strong. And sometimes in the evening, when we heard the sound of drums, we said it won't divide us. We'll always be as one.
That's correct. And I would also like to bring to your attention chapter 6 basically wrote itself, because I interviewed all these singer-songwriters, Tommy, Phil Coulter, Mickey McConnell, and I think not everyone is into reading history books, but I want to stress that songs should equally be regarded as historical documents, because like you said, like Tom said, they capture how people felt at the time. So I think it's just a fantastic alternative to study, even in years to come, what happened in Northern Ireland, and to hopefully bring more understanding, and to hopefully show all these people that we have to learn from mistakes from the past, and we have to move on into a peaceful future.
Could the sentiments of Tommy Sands' work there, the generality of the sentiments, could they be taken and fine-tuned to meet the need of human hearts that were in East Germany?
Well, I'm sure. I think one purpose being that, like I said, even in a few years' time, you could study this, but there are similarities all over the world. And I think it's very important that we all get a chance to express our opinions. And I hope I can contribute a little bit to a better understanding and show that there is healing, there can be healing, there is always hope. And that's why I quoted from all these singer-songwriters, to show there is a lot of hope in all of us.
It's interesting that you were drawn to music as the vehicle for the book, because without the music there's no book.
Correct.
What drew you?
Yeah, songs always appeal to me. I always found that song texts really speak to me, and I think I'm probably not the only one. At my recent book signing in Killarney, I had a 16-year-old girl coming to me not once but twice or even 3 times, very intrigued to find out more about what rock and pop musicians wrote, or which songs they wrote about the Troubles and the peace process. And when I looked at this 16-year-old girl, I realized that was me. Songs really spoke to me. And I found there's a lot of students out there that even in future might be interested, instead of studying a history book, they can look at the songs that were written about the past, the Northern Irish past, and find their own musical journey, and maybe find their own way of expressing their feelings in future.
Tommy, you're a world traveler. You've been there, you've done it. Is it your experience, essentially, that the musicality of the work takes you through always, and that it is undeniably a unifying factor?
Yes, you know, if you go into a pub and people are sitting around maybe having a pint on their own, and then suddenly someone starts playing a tune in the corner on a fiddle or something like that. Suddenly you see people's toes tapping. That creates a unity between everybody, and people are in no time are saying, "Who are you anyway, and what are you having?" You know, and everything changes. And I've noticed, you know, in the former East Germany, it was a fascinating place in many ways. Many faults, but many wonderful things too. And in one sense, it's a pity that there was more of a balancing out of the giving and taking between the East and the West, because the West had it worked out economically, or had they, but the idealism of what they were trying to do in the East the idealism was, there's certain goods on the table here. There's one piece of meat on the table. They would say, our system says, we will make sure that this is divided. Whereas in our world of freedom, where you have freedom to get as much as you can,
take the meat.
Many people starve.
Yep.
Now, I mean, ideally, in the East, it was great, but of course, a lot of people went for the whole lot, even though they maintained they were going along with the philosophy of sharing and all that sort of thing. But the music there, I suppose there was only a certain amount of things that could be sung there in a way. And a lot of people, as Katrin said, really didn't want all that much to change, but they wanted to travel. They wanted to get around. They wanted to listen to different things. They wanted to listen to what they wanted and so on.
Travel was the great thing, because that's what you hankered after. That's what your grandmother said you must do.
Exactly, and it was so important not to be allowed to travel. It was one of the big things, but also, as Tom mentioned, you weren't allowed, you didn't have the freedom to say or sing about how you felt. And again, there's probably the bridge I'm trying to cross here. There are similar problems all over the world, and the same in East Germany. We weren't allowed to express our feelings. We always had to be careful what to say, because somebody might listen in and might report you to the
And what would the
Secret Service.
consequences of that reporting have been?
Or it could have been very severe. You could have just received a warning, or you could have been taken away to some of these prisons in Berlin. I mean, what I'm trying to do next is write some of these stories down, personal stories from my own background, or how my father had to leave Poland when he was only 6-7 years of age during World War II. So there's a lot more I would like to write about, and hopefully in years to come, that will help people to understand what our past was like and where we are coming from, because obviously the older you get, you realize it's so important to write all this down. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and like, what will she remember about my past, my grandparents? So it is important that people like Tom write songs about it, or we write books about it.
You have a strong base for having an opinion on it, and the question is, with the passage of time, the coming down of the wall, with the with peace process in place in Northern Ireland, are you optimistic about the future?
I think so. I am very optimistic, but like every process, a peace process, it all takes time. But I think, I believe, and also talking to a lot of people from both sides of the political divide, what they've been through, they don't want to see their children and grandchildren going through the exact same thing. And a lot of people are just, we want to move forward to a peaceful future. Always there will be minority groups, but I think it's important that the word gets out and we all fight for a peaceful future. Absolutely.
And Tommy, an awful lot of these sentiments we found in your work in America, in your work with Pete Seeger, all of that kind of thing. The same message is coming through, because he was a seeker after a better world.
Yes, absolutely. I think Pete taught us all so much. And he wasn't just a songwriter or a singer, he was a philosopher. And he cared about things and cared about people. He also looked at the reasons behind troubles as well. Terrorism, that's I think it was Ray Charles that said, speaking of singers, and a wonderful singer too, he said that if war is a terror of empires, does that make terror the war of the poor?
Ah, yes.
Brendan Behan said, you know the difference between the official army and the terrorists? The official army are the one with the big guns. And there's so many elements to this, and I think the whole idea about art, about songwriting, is to throw all those elements up into the air, watch them spinning around as many times as possible, to see all the different sides of them, to get a different angle on them. You, as a journalist, and a very good one too, you always look for a fresh angle that the normal person would not necessarily see. And I think that's what artists, poetry, parables, all these things are about a kind of a lateral thinking, looking at it another way.
Well, maybe, Tommy, you would take us into another song.
Right.
With the possibility, maybe, of crossing the pond and going in the direction of Pete.
Okay. Well, you know,
I think that we're in the full buzz of the people coming and going at the McCormack breakfast, and I'm going to double check with my engineering staff. Is everything fine there from a sound point of view? We just have the excitement that's going on in the background.
Well, I think
but we're being heard very well.
Well, this is what folk songs are about. You go in amongst the people, wherever
That's
they might
where we
be.
are now. And they're listening as they talk, they're listening to our conversation, and they're listening to your music. Tommy, take it away there.
Well, I think Katrin mentioned my brother Colm earlier on there in Bedford.
Yes.
And this is one of my favourite songs from Colm. And it's about, well, a danger song.
Wow.
Whatever you say nothing when you speak about you know what. For if you know who should hear you, you know they'll take you off to you know where, for you wouldn't know how long. So for you know who's sick, don't let anyone hear you singing this song. You all know what I'm speaking of when I mention you know what. And I fear it's very dangerous to even mention that, for the other ones are always near, although you may not see. But if anyone asks who told you that, please don't mention me. And whatever you say nothing when you speak about you know what. For if you know who should hear you, you know what you'll get. They'll take you off to you know where, for you wouldn't know how long. So for you know who's sick, don't let anyone hear you singing this song. And you all know who I'm speaking of when I mention you know who. And you know what he'd do to me if he knew what I do. So if you don't see me again, you know why I'm away. But if anyone asks you where I've gone, whatever you say nothing when you speak about you know what. For if you know who should hear you, you know what you'll get. They'll take you off to you know where, for you wouldn't know how long. So for you know who's sick, don't let anyone hear you singing this song. Well, that's enough about so-and-so, not to mention such and such. I better end my song now, I've already said too much. For the less you hear and the less you say, the less you'll go astray. But the less you think and the less you do, the more you'll hear them say. Whatever you say nothing when you speak about you know what. For if you know who should hear you, you know what you'll get. They'll take you off to you know where, for you wouldn't know how long. So for you know who's sick, don't let anyone hear you singing this song. So for you know who's sick, don't let anyone hear you singing this song.
Oh, thank you very much indeed, Tommy. That's wonderful. And it's great to be here in the midst of everything. The coming and going of the people behind us. They're all coming down out of the McCormack, the FPM post-budget breakfast. They're all finding out about life and about their fiscal realities, I suppose. But talking about realities, Katrin, we heard of the start of your life in East Germany. You're now, many people would see, as living in the idyllic situation of Kerry in the far south of Ireland. Talk to me, if you would, about the way your life has changed and the way you are today.
Well, obviously, we're talking 20 years later since I first came
Not a
to
long
Ireland.
time.
Well,
Flies.
It flies indeed. So I'm very fortunate. I have a very supportive partner, a 7-year-old daughter who loves Irish singing and dancing. And I work as a tour guide in the summer months, a program director, tour guide, and I love doing walking tours in Kerry. I absolutely love County Kerry, and the scenery there is fantastic. So that's what I do in the summertime, and then in the winter I try to be more creative and write my book. So this is actually my second book. A few years ago I wrote a book on Van Morrison's musical journey, This is my second book, and this one is dedicated to Tony Macaulay, who I have to mention today
Dear
as
Tony,
well.
we
Dear
remember him
Tony
well. My
Macaulay.
colleague in the BBC, Tommy.
What actually happened to me last year was the 10th anniversary of his death, and Tony became such a wonderful friend of mine in the short time I lived in Belfast doing research for my PhD. It was again through Tom who invited me to a BBC radio program in 2002, and that's where I met Tony, and he became such a wonderful friend, helping me with my research. And last June then, so many things happened to me. I got so many signals from up above telling me, you have to sit down and publish this book.
Yeah.
He was always pushing me. He helped me to meet people from both sides of the political divide. He introduced me to Phil Coulter. He got me in contact with Mickey McConnell. I talked to wonderful people in Belfast from both sides, like I said, and without the help of Tony, I wouldn't have possibly been able to do it.
You will be delighted to know that the last time I met Tony was a month before his death, and he came to the University of Ulster and sat down with us at our Tuesday afternoon soiree with Neil, the artist, the great Neil Shawcross, the wonderful artist. And there we were, singing and telling stories, drinking wine and eating smoked salmon and shooting the breeze about life. And that's my memory of him. That's happiness in an afternoon in Belfast.
Fantastic.
What's your website where people can contact
My
you?
website, if you look at my name, I know it's not easy, it's katrinpietzonka.com. So my full name,
Pietzonka.
Pietzonka, katrinpietzonka.com. I'm also planning a book launch in the Linen Hall Library later on in the summer. So if you want to check the Linen Hall website or my own website for the date coming up.
Yes.
And I can't do it by myself. The reason I came here today is I want to make sure the book gets the recognition.
Yes.
It deserves the publicity. I'm not here to get publicity. I don't want to make a fortune with the book, but I think it is a fantastic book, if I may say so myself. And a lot of people should find out about it, people interested in the history of Northern Ireland. And hopefully I will also get into the school curriculum. It might become a school book in years to come. That would be my main aim.
Well, it is a fantastic book because of the sentiments within it that are fantastic. And we shall continue to promote the book on the programme. We'll rerun this for a start tomorrow, on the programme tomorrow, and we will tell people about the website, and we will keep in touch. That's important.
Fantastic. Thank
Tommy,
you so much.
would you play us out at this stage?
Let me see. I'll give you a verse.
A verse would be lovely.
Slanawalya, Slanawalya, may your dreams come true. Slanawalya, Slanawalya, I'll remember you. Slanawalya, Slanawalya, may your dreams come true. Slanawalya.